Walking about 7,000 steps a day may deliver most of the longevity benefits people often chase with far more ambitious fitness goals. That's the key finding from a study published in the JAMA Network Open that followed more than 2,100 adults for nearly 11 years. Rather than relying on self-reported activity, researchers use wearable devices to objectively track participants' daily step counts, making the data far more reliable than simple estimates. The researchers divided participants into three groups. The first group walked fewer than 7,000 steps a day. The second group walked between 7,000 and 9,999 steps per day. The third group walked more than 10,000 steps per day. Then they followed these people for nearly 11 years. During that time, 72 participants died. When the researchers analysed the data, they found something remarkable. But before we get into that, I'm Neil Figures, and I wanted to thank you for taking time to watch this video. Welcome to part 1 of an 8-part series exploring the health benefits of walking. I've decided to focus on walking because it's free, accessible, and has one of the lowest barriers to entry of almost any health intervention. Most of us are fortunate enough to have the ability to walk, and yet many people overlook just how powerful that simple activity can be. Throughout the series, I'll be sharing findings from credible scientific studies investigating the impact walking can have on health. I am not a doctor, scientist, or researcher. I am simply an everyday man sharing evidence that may help people improve their health, quality of life, and potentially even their lifespan. The information already exists. My goal is to bring it together in one place and present it in a way that's easy to understand and apply. Now let's get into the findings. The researchers discovered that people who walk between 7,000 and 9,999 steps per day had a 72% lower risk of death compared with people who walked fewer than 7,000 steps per day. A 72% lower risk of death. Take a moment to let that sink in. We're not talking about elite athletes. We're not talking about marathon runners. We're talking about ordinary people who simply moved more throughout the day. Even people walking more than 10,000 steps per day had a significantly lower mortality rate than the least active group. What's particularly interesting is that the biggest difference wasn't between people walking 10,000 steps and 15,000 steps. The biggest difference was between the people who were largely sedentary and people who simply became more active. In other words, you don't need to become an athlete. You need to stop being inactive. The researchers also looked at whether walking faster made a difference when it came to longevity. Many people assume you need to power walk, jog, or constantly push the pace. But the study found that once total daily steps were taken into account, walking intensity wasn't strongly associated with living longer. The amount of walking appeared to matter more than the speed. That's incredibly encouraging. It means you don't need to turn every walk into a workout. You can walk while listening to a podcast. You can walk while taking a phone call. You can walk with your partner. You can walk with your children. You can walk the dog. You can park further away from the supermarket. You can get off the bus one stop earlier. You can simply move more throughout the day. Now, before you think speed doesn't matter at all, there's another fascinating study from Japan that adds some important context. Researchers at Shinshu University developed something called interval walking training. The protocol was remarkably simple. Participants walked briskly for 3 minutes. Then they slowed down and walked at an easier pace for 3 minutes. Then they repeated that cycle. 3 minutes fast, 3 minutes easy, over and over again. What makes this study so interesting is that the researchers weren't looking specifically at longevity. They were looking at fitness, strength, and overall health. The results were impressive. Compared with people who simply walked continuously at a moderate pace, interval walking group achieved greater improvements in aerobic fitness. They improved their leg strength. They improved their blood pressure. They improved their blood sugar control. They improved overall physical function. In some cases, aerobic fitness improved by around 20%. That's a substantial improvement from an activity as simple as walking. So, how do we reconcile the American study with the Japanese study? The answer is actually straightforward. The American study suggests that when it comes to living longer, the most important thing is accumulating enough movement. The Japanese study suggests that once you've established a consistent walking habit, introducing short periods of faster walking may provide additional improvements in fitness and metabolic health. In simple terms, first walk, then walk consistently. Then, if you're able, occasionally pick up the pace. You don't need to sprint, you do not need to suffer. You do not need to turn every walk into a punishment session, but strategically increasing your pace for short periods may help you become fitter, stronger, and healthier. Another reason the JAMA study is so valuable is that the findings were consistent across different groups. The benefits were seen in men. The benefits were seen in women. The benefits were seen in black participants. The benefits were seen in white participants. This wasn't a result limited to one specific type of person. The researchers also adjusted for a wide range of factors that could influence lifespan. These included age, sex, smoking status, alcohol consumption, body weight, blood pressure, cholesterol levels, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and overall health status. Even after accounting for all of those factors, the relationship between walking and longevity remains. That makes the findings much harder to dismiss. Now, here's something else that's important. For years, we've been told that 10,000 steps per day is the magic number, but this study suggests that's not necessarily true. The data showed that most of the longevity benefits were actually achieved well before that point. The curve started to flatten at around 10,000 steps per day. In plain English, the biggest gains came from moving from inactive to active. You don't need perfection, you need consistency. Think about that. If someone currently averages 2,000 or 3,000 steps per day, increasing that to 7,000 steps could potentially have a profound impact on their long-term health. Not because walking is some miracle cure, but because the human body was designed to move. Walking improves cardiovascular health. It helps regulate blood sugar. It improves circulation. It supports healthy body weight. It reduces prolonged periods of sitting. And over time, all of these benefits accumulate. There's another important point that often gets overlooked. It's not just how much you walk, it's also how long you spend sitting without moving. Researchers have found that prolonged periods of uninterrupted sitting are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and premature death. Think about that for a moment. You could hit your daily step target. You could go for a morning walk. You could even go to the gym. But if you then spend the next 10 hours sitting almost completely still, you're missing an important piece of the puzzle. Research has shown that breaking up sitting time with short bouts of movement can improve blood sugar controls, insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, and other markers of metabolic health. Even a few minutes of light walking can make a difference. The good news is that this doesn't require anything complicated. You don't need another workout. You don't need special equipment. You do not need to block out an extra hour in your day. Simply standing up and moving regularly throughout the day can have a meaningful impact on your health. Walk to fill up your water bottle. Take a lap around the office. Walk while taking a phone call. Use the stairs instead of the lift. Park a little further away. Get off the bus one stop earlier, or simply stand up and move every 30 minutes if possible. When you combine regular daily walking with fewer long periods of sitting, you're creating an environment where your body can function the way it was designed to function. The human body wasn't built to sit for 8, 10 or 12 hours at a time. It was built to move. And sometimes the biggest health improvements don't come from doing something extreme. They come from doing something simple, consistently, every single day. In many ways, that's the real message of this study. Not that you need a perfect fitness program. Not that you need to chase the latest exercise trend. Not that you need to train like a professional athlete. You simply need to move more than you currently do. And the evidence suggests that your future self may thank you for it. The lesson from this study is simple. You don't need the perfect fitness program. You don't need to spend hours in the gym. You don't need to train like a professional athlete. One of the most effective things you can do to improve your chances of living longer is to put on a comfortable pair of shoes, get outside and walk. Because when research has followed more than 2,000 adults for nearly 11 years, the people who consistently walked around 7,000 steps a day weren't just fitter, they were significantly more likely to still be alive. And that's a result worth paying attention to. The key takeaways. Walking between 7,000 and 9,999 steps per day was associated with a 72% lower risk of death compared to walking fewer than 7,000 steps per day. The largest health benefits came from moving from a sedentary lifestyle to a more active lifestyle, one rather than chasing an extremely high step count. Total daily steps mattered more than walking speed when it came to longevity. The findings remain consistent across different demographic groups and after adjusting for major health and lifestyle factors. Most longevity benefits appeared before 10,000 steps per day, highlighting the importance of consistent daily movement over perfection. The Japanese interval walking training study suggests that once you've built a walking habit, short periods of brisk walking may provide additional improvements in fitness, strength, blood pressure, and metabolic health. Breaking up long periods of sitting with short bouts of movement may further improve blood sugar control, metabolic health, and long-term health outcomes. Walking became part of my fitness regime a couple of years ago. I started going for an 8K walk in the spring mornings a few times a week. It felt great. Walking in nature first thing in the morning, strolling past joggers and people walking their dogs, passing other early morning walkers, walking past people having early morning coffees. You start to see the same faces. You start to greet them as you cross paths. You can listen to podcasts and walk with just the sounds of nature. Spring led into summer, and before I knew it, I'd been averaging 7 and 13k steps a day. That was my journey. Find a way to incorporate 7 steps into your daily fitness regime. And the interesting thing is that I never set out with the goal of hitting a specific number. I wasn't chasing 10,000. I wasn't trying to break records. I wasn't trying to become an endurance athlete. I simply found a form of movement that I enjoyed. The steps accumulated almost by accident. Some days I would walk because the weather was good. Some days I would walk because I wanted to listen to a podcast. Some days I would walk because I needed time to think. Some days I would walk because I wanted a break from work. But the result was the same. I moved more. And that is really the lesson I hope people take away from this video. Health doesn't always improve because we force ourselves to do things we hate. Sometimes it improves because we find simple habits that fit naturally into our lives. For me, walking became one of those habits. And when I look at the research we've covered today, it turns out that one of the simplest habits I adopted was also one of the most evidence-backed. Maybe your version is a morning walk. Maybe it's an evening walk with your partner. Maybe it's walking a dog. Maybe it's getting off the bus a stop earlier. Maybe it's walking while talking and taking calls. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is that you start, because every journey begins with a simple step. And according to the evidence, a few thousand more steps each day may be one of the best investments you can take in your future health. If you found this useful, if it resonated with you, or if it inspired you to improve your health, hit the like button or share with someone who you feel can benefit from this video. Subscribe if you're interested in evidence-based health, nutrition, fitness and longevity content from an everyday man. Share this with someone who think they need the perfect workout program before they can improve their health. And let me know in the comments how many steps you're averaging each day. Are you already hitting 7,000 steps? Or is that your next target? Remember, you only get one body. Fuel it properly.